Uh, this was not what I was planning to talk about or write about in this latest edition of Reading Between the Lines. I had intended to answer a question about micromanagers. It was something that came up in a recent talk. Someone had asked me if I thought micromanagers have empathy. I think it's a great question. It's got a very nuanced answer. And unfortunately, it's going to have to wait until next time. Over the past week, I've been reaching out to friends, clients, colleagues, people that I know in the Twin Cities. I just wanted to check in to see how they're doing with all of the ICE activity, try to offer support or at least a supportive ear. What I was hearing from people over and over was that people are unsettled. They're concerned. They're trying to figure out what they can do while still trying to be safe. With the murder of Renee Good, the arrest and treatment of 5-year-old Liam, and the general abusive behavior of ICE agents. It's been weighing heavily on them. It's weighing heavily on me. I also heard from people that work, it's a welcome distraction. At the same time, it's really hard to focus. And then Saturday the 24th, Alex Preddy was murdered, executed. And there's no words that really can adequately describe what it feels like watching the video captured by the bystanders. There's an analysis that's been done by a lot of different media outlets, including CNN. I put a link in the comments below or in the show notes, but they showed that Preddy was unarmed when he was shot, and he was shot 9 times or more by ICE agents. And the thing that's so frustrating is in this world of fragmented media and fragmented sources of information, not everybody's hearing the same story. And the New York Times, and I'll put this link as well in the show notes, and it's a gift link so anybody can go look. The New York Times was reporting on how Fox News over the weekend was supporting the administration's official account of what happened. And they were trying to paint Alex Preddy as a domestic terrorist, that he came in threatening all these ICE agents, that he was going to massacre everybody. When you watch the video, it's really clear that that is not the case. Like that video from the death of Renee Good 2 weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago, the video from Saturday's killing of Alex Preddy has been seen far and wide, and that really sinks in. And then coupled with that massive snowstorm and ice storm that so many people in the country were going through, there was a lot of time to ruminate, to watch, to take it in. And, you know, when you look at it, you see what you're seeing. And now we're in a work week. And as we return to work, leaders, and I'm talking about lowercase l leaders, anybody that's in any sort of a leadership role in an organization, the leaders are going to be faced with teams that need to be met where they are. What that means for the leaders is that requires listening and even a willingness to be vulnerable, both in person in how we're showing up, but also how we communicate. And so I wanted to talk more about that and what that actually might look like and some practical tips. But first, a couple things to keep in mind. So latest polls have found about 2/3 of U.S. adults disapprove of how ICE is doing its job. However, that leaves 1/3 that do approve. And so not everybody in your workplace may see this as unjustified violence. Some people are going to believe what Fox News and the administration are saying. And so you've got to understand that. You've got to understand where your people are. And you also have to understand, too, that not everybody's going to want to engage. They don't want current events brought into the workplace. They really want to just focus and keep all of that noise as noise from the world around us. But a majority of people are feeling it. So I've got 3 different suggestions for you to consider as you are working through this. Again, as leaders and even as colleagues, this is about how we show up for each other. Suggestion number 1 is just to do what feels right. Just last week, I was having a conversation with a C-suite executive at a national retail chain, and he was relaying how ICE had raided one of their stores, and a couple of their employees were detained and removed to detention centers and other places. And the leadership of the retail chain decided that they had to do what was right. And he used those exact words. We knew we had to do the right thing. And for them, that meant engaging lawyers to help those employees regain their freedom. It meant communicating support to the rest of the team and explaining the actions that they were taking as a company, as well as reaffirming their commitment to a diverse workforce, to their diverse customer base. And according to this executive, all of those actions were really well received. And the thing is, they did the right thing. And by doing the right thing in this case, they're going to have strengthened the loyalty and trust that they have with those employees, both at that store and probably within the entire company, because stories about that type of action, the way people show up, get out really quickly. And it was simply because they were being human. They knew that the right thing to do was to help their employees who were detained and to support the employees that were working at the store. So as you're facing talking with your team this week, I'd ask you to listen to your heart. Follow your instinct for what feels like the right thing to say. Don't worry about over empathizing in this moment. This is just about being human. A couple potential openers if you're struggling, like, okay, what does that even look like? How do I even bring this up? A couple of opening questions or comments might be one of them. How are you doing with the shooting in Minneapolis this weekend? Or another one, it was a pretty intense weekend with the news out of Minneapolis and the storm. How are you holding up? Another one could just be, how are you feeling? How are you doing with all of the news and everything that's happening outside of these walls at our workplace? And then, of course, listen to the answer. So suggestion one, do the right thing. Do what feels right for you. Suggestion number two, I'd like you to create some space. Not everybody's going to want to participate. Not everybody's going to want to have the conversation. As I mentioned earlier, some people are going to want to keep things to the outside. Some people are going to have different points of view as well. That's okay. You know, this moment feels really similar to the late spring of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd, when there were all of those protests. At the time, I was the CEO at Ignite 360, and at the recommendation of one of our HR leaders, we started a virtual coffee talk. Remember, it was during the pandemic. We were all working remotely. There was a lot of chaos and confusion because of that. Then we all got to witness George Floyd being murdered by the local police, and then had to figure out, how do we deal with this? And so we created We Coffee Talk, and it was 30 minutes. It was once a week. Anyone who wanted to come together and talk about what was going on. We were not talking about work. We were talking about current events, other things in life, things that were of interest to us. Some of it was negative, some of it was positive. And those sessions continued for 3 years. And not everybody showed up every week, and that was okay. Other things were going on, but most people engaged and participated. And we really came to appreciate time together that wasn't dominated by work deadlines or the fire drills that we were having to deal with. So that second suggestion, create that space for people to share. You've already got the first tip on how to ask a couple of questions and doing the right thing, and then make some space. The third suggestion, this is a time to be vulnerable. We're all human. We're all reacting to horrible acts that we are witnessing being taken out against other humans. And it's natural that this would probably affect you too. And it's actually okay if you're a leader to say how you're feeling, how something made you feel frustrated, angry, sad, fearful, whatever those words are. Say it out loud. People on your team might actually benefit from sharing and having that help as a coping mechanism. Share how you're feeling. They're going to be able to identify with that. And also share how you put bad news behind you to get the work done. Because everybody's different, but hearing what works for others can actually help. So, those are my three tips. The first one is to do what feels right. The second one is to make the space for people. And the third one is to get vulnerable. A final thought: remind your team why the work still matters, why that widget that you guys make is important. So hold space for them, let people share, help them feel safe. And then you want to, after they do that, try to bring them all back together so that you can lift them up and out of that space and be the leader. You can do that by transitioning to something lighter. You can remind them what they mean to you, express gratitude and appreciation for them, their work, and for them even showing up. And maybe even then remind them why that thing that your company does, that widget that you make, why that matters. Remind them of the people that you're serving as a company and the problem that you're solving. Remind them of that hill that you're all climbing together. What is that mission? What is the vision that you have? Share that with them to help pull them all together, and definitely keep that proverbial door open in case they need to come in and share. Final note, thought, closing comment. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to take step number 3 and get vulnerable. I was deeply, deeply troubled by what I saw of Alex's murder. And from everything that I've seen, he was overpowered and then shot repeatedly. And it felt like witnessing an execution. On top of that, the cruelty that was displayed last week toward a 5-year-old, towards peaceful protesters, towards people detained seemingly on a whim, the lack of training at ICE is evident. And this isn't a video game, but I feel like I'm watching agents act out a first-person shooter game half the time. It's so bad. I lost sleep on Saturday night, and I lost that sleep while I was trying to put a prayer out into the universe just for love and light for all of us, for everybody that's struggling right now. And it's a large, large group of people, and you could feel the weight of it. And just feeling all of that, it kept me up. It felt like this large chasm of so many of us really struggling. So if this helps even one person walk into work with a little more care this week, work with their teams a little differently, then this has been worth sharing. So I hope that you would consider sharing this with your colleagues, people that you know that might need this. And definitely let me know how you're doing in the comments. Email me. I'll put my email address in the comments as well. Reach out, and definitely reach out to people that could use a little support right now. That is this edition of Reading Between the Lines. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Rob Volpe, and I will be back with more, including whether micromanagers have empathy or not. What do you think? Talk to you soon. Take care.